Yes.
Yes.
So it's just so nice to see everyone here. It's 3:03, so I think we're gonna.
There we go.
Oh.
I'm trying to mute everyone, if that's okay. I'll take me just a second.
It's just one quick housekeeping piece of information just for everyone, just so you know, we've disabled the chat. If you have any questions, please let us know. Uriah and I will be able to see them. So if you have any questions, please filter them through us, and we will ask our nice hosts their thoughts.
Okay, so I want to start with Dustin Klein. You see our friend Dustin Klein here from who's working with me here at Milwaukee Jewish Federation. So about I would say, was it a month ago, maybe a couple of months ago, Dustin asked me, and we were talking, and it was like, what's going to be a really cool program? We should talk with Shimon, bring his friends over virtually, and talk about Shimon's Army service. I think he had such a cool, unique, different experience from the IDF. And I said, sure, let's do it. So here we are, Dustin, on Thursday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I know it's 11 p.m. in Israel, so it means for Asaf and Deddi, we're just starting the day, right? Starting Israel's lockdown. It's not like you have anywhere to go, right? So you have to be here with us.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of other options. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dustin. And every time someone asks me, I'm a Shaliach, I'm Uriah Roth, I'm the Shaliach, the community Shaliach here in Milwaukee, working here at the Milwaukee Jewish Federation. And every time someone asks me, what do you have done in the Israeli Army, in the IDF? I feel kind of embarrassed, I can tell you, but then I really don't have anything good to, anything exciting to tell you. Because my Army service was pretty boring. I had a desk, I had a computer, and I didn't have a lot to do for 3 years. So that's one experience that one person can have. But I can assure you that for Shimon, Asaf, and Deddi was a whole different experience. But the reason I'm saying that, because as an individual, as an Israeli, the question, what have you done in the Army? Where did you serve? It's like, asking an American, where did you go to college? And when you ask someone, it's like, oh, I went to Yale, I went to Harvard. It's like, I went to Cornell. It's like everyone is so excited. And there's some other answers that people are not so excited to share. So I feel like in the Israeli Army, it's sometimes sometimes you're defined about where did you serve. But to be in part of Chovlim, the sailors unit, I think it's always one of the most elite unit in the IDF, and especially the time where Asaf, Deddi, and Shimon, when they served, it was a really unique time. But I guess in Israel, every time is a unique time to serve in the Army. And so I wanna, I'll do a brief introduction. When I look at the bios of Shimon, Asaf, and Deddi, one thing that came up, that the word tzevet in Hebrew, the word tzevet means team, and not just about the Army, whatever they did after that was always about tzevet, about a team. Asaf was Asaf was working as a business manager in a famous startup company called Money.com, and he's running other teams today, and he's a business manager, and he worked in that company, which is a huge success in Israel. And also Deddi worked as a product owner in a company called Autodesk, and his product called Roadmaps, which also you're in charge of other teams, and you're the head of that team. So it's not just in the Army, but ever since then, it's about running other teams. And of course, Shimon working in our team at the Federation. And I mean, not just now, but forever, he's running other teams since. So I think for them, the Army service, it's not just something that happened a decade ago, but it's an ongoing experience. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hear from Shimon first, then we're going to hear from Asaf, and then from Deddi, and then we're going to open the floor for Q&A, anything you would like to ask any one of them about their stories they're going to share. We are here for until 3:45 at least, so we'll have time for Q&A as well. So here we go. Shimon, bevakasha.
Thank you, Uriah, and thank you all for making it to this session. I see a couple of my friends from the Federation and from the community and from Cabinet. I see Robin and Matt also here to support, in addition to my two comrades in arms, Asaf and Deddi, who I've had the good fortune of calling brothers for the past 17 years. Some of them more hairy than others, and they probably need to shave, but still calling them brothers for the past 17 years. I think Israel is uniquely positioned, and the IDF is uniquely positioned to be the world's based HR system. And let me explain. From the age that you're 15, you start going through rigorous tests, psychological, analytical, sociological, physical, medical, mental, emotional, in order to be able to grasp what is your passion, what is your skill set, and what does the military need from you? What unit could you best come through and pursue your full potential and your service? The unit that we volunteered in, and the emphasis is on volunteer because none of us did the 3 years mandatory military service. We did a minimum of 7.5 years up to 8.5 years, is the Naval Officers Academy. The Naval Officers Academy is our equivalent to Annapolis. So like you have West Point and Annapolis, the Naval Academy in Israel, Chovlim, as Uriah said it, is our Annapolis. Now, as you go through this phase, our military branch, our Navy branch is significantly different than the US. And the reason being is that in the US, each branch, whether it's the Air Force, whether it's the military, whether it's the Navy, has all elements, earth, water and air in it, from mobile infantry to pilots and airplanes and choppers to naval vessels. That's not the case. The entire Israeli Navy could probably fit on one US aircraft carrier. So the entire Israeli Navy could fit on one US aircraft carrier. And last I checked, and my friends correct me if I'm wrong, the US has about 8 of them. So our might is not in our volume and in our numbers, but it's in our unique technology capabilities and the people. Asaf, as an example, he is Monday.com's employee number 20th. And this is a multi-billion-dollar company right now. And he was one of the first people to the bat, and he's been with them for the past 6 years. Deddi is my personal tutor and probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. And not only that he's a product manager for a major startup, but he's also a father of 2 children, similar to Asaf. And he loves singing. He has his own YouTube channel with all these songs that he's writing together with his son, and they're singing along the way. So I think the skill in any one of the situations is to surround yourself by people whom you can look at, which I've been fortunate enough to do in the Federation, and say, I am surrounded by people who are significantly more successful, more talented, and smarter than me. And I think this is the rule of thumb for us and our military service. But the military service is more than joining the military and putting on the uniform. It's the single biggest fusion for the Israeli society as a whole. It brings us together from all across the spectrum, denominations, religions, ethnicities, skin colors. It brings us all together. It is you make the first best friend who is of Russian heritage, who is of an Ethiopian heritage, a Druze heritage, and you serve together through thick and thin. So a little bit about my track and some of the ways that it shaped me. Throughout our tenure, which started in March 14th, 2004, all the way, in my case, till August 2012, we had the opportunity and the misfortune to be part of 4 major transformational events in Israeli society. The first one in 2005 was the Gaza Strip disengagement. If you recall, Gush Katif, a settlement in the north part of the Gaza Strip, they needed to recruit Israeli soldiers and cadets in order to help remove the families from their homes. Thousands of Jewish families that were motivated in the 80s by the government to settle there needed to be removed by soldiers, by the Israeli soldiers, and that was a process that some of us took more part of than others. The second one, as soon as we graduated, a week after we graduated, when we were all in Turkey, in Club Med, celebrating almost 3 years of intense training, we were called back and the Second Lebanon War started. So we were also leading men through that for the following weeks. The third one is the Gaza War. So that happened in late 2008, December 2008 to January 2009, where after massive rocket fire from the Gaza Strip, Israel retaliated and entered the Gaza Strip in order to sustain and distinguish some of these rocket fires. So we were already, some of us ship commanders, squadron commanders through that. And lastly was the Flotilla. If you recall, in March 2010, 8 ships tried to breach Israel's territorial waters, spearheaded by a famous ship called the Mavi Marmara. And we had a chance to be there and in different capacities, myself as the Admiral's command ship, and Asaf on one of the bigger corvettes who accompanied them. And Daddy was probably flying a drone or had an unmanned vessel somewhere, like tracking them. But I'll let them expand on that. So and these are probably the 4 major things that happened throughout our service. But I just want to share with you a brief overview of my service and then how it affected me as an individual and as a professional. So, you know, I joined the military 2004, knowing very little about the sea. But again, recognizing that I've gone through 3 years of different testing, and this is where the military, based on all the previous points that I shared, saw it fitting to put me, that's where I joined. We started about 150 people, a rigorous 2.5-year long course. We finished it about 33. And through that, I had the privilege of being the first captain for the last 6 months of the cadets of our officer school, but not as much as Asaf, who was the outstanding cadet of the entire officer school at that time. So as I said, as soon as we finished our training, we all went to Turkey. And back then, the relationship with Turkey in 2006 was still good. And we spent about a week there in Club Med. And then on day number 5 or 6, we were called back because Asaf, I'm not sure if it was your ship or your sister ship, was hit by a missile. It was your ship. Okay, your ship was hit by a missile. So we were all called back to serve. And it was really a scene taken out of the movies that as soon as we landed, we had anywhere from Hummers and stuff like that waiting for us. And I'm like, what's the rush? We're not going anywhere. That's it. We're in here, you know. But, you know, it's us 20 years old. From there, I continued to be a deputy officer in a missile ship in the weapons department. And from there, I was fortunate enough to get command of my own ship in the southern region of Israel, which is the Gaza Strip. So if you look at Israel from north to south, it's almost 8 hours, and it's all the Mediterranean Sea. Where Eilat is, our most southern city, is the Red Sea. And that's where there's a lot of ships and a lot of movement, especially as we're talking about the potential Iranian threat and what does it look like as far as tracking them. But we were primarily in the Mediterranean in smaller ships, 15 to 25 people per ship, doing normal routines in the 20 miles of the Gaza Strip. And we did that for a few years, basically making sure that no rockets are fired in Israel and no suicide bombers or swimmers can get across the lines and penetrate Israel territory. But did that for a few more years. And then, as I mentioned, there was the Gaza War and then the Flotilla and a whole bunch of operations. You know, sometimes when I think I reflect on it, it seems like a very far away dream. And I'm trying to shake myself up and ask if it ever really happened. But the military itself, besides the lifelong friends that I've made and the ability to serve my country. And again, by serving my country, I mean serving my mom's front door, like 15 minutes away from my base. This is like when I would stay over the weekend, like my dad would like come over the fence and pass us some dishes, you know, and food. So this is how close this is in proximity to our houses. This isn't a far-fetched dream or something beyond us or something that you can't even imagine. This is very, very real. When you see missiles getting fired, you know exactly where they're fired at and where they're landing and who lives there. And if you have an aunt, a cousin, a friend, a grandmother in the proximity. But it definitely shaped us as a professional to learn what our values are. You know, I constantly say this to some of my my friends. We might be confused about a lot of things, but we're not confused about what our values are, what we believe in: camaraderie, integrity, team, honesty, personal example, professionalism. These are some of the things that we really learned most times the hard way. But it shaped us to what we are today and the professional trajectory that we've taken. And I'll leave it at that. If you guys want to later expand on any one of the 4 major things that I mentioned, we're more than happy to do that. But I will also send the ball to Asaf right now, and then Deddi to each have 5 minutes to introduce themselves, share some of their stories, some of their insights before we open it up to Q&A. Uriah, good?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Asaf.
Asaf.
Wow, that's pretty difficult to go after Shimon. Almost as difficult as going after Deddi's singing, but I'll do try. So hi everyone, Asaf Radkin, 35 years old, married, 2 daughters. Yeah, first of all, professionally, as Shimon said, I've been working for 5 years for a startup named Monday.com. Actually, not sure if you know, but some of the participants here, I looked it up while Shimon was talking, are actually using Monday.com to manage some of their processes. I'm not going to out you. There it is. Okay. Yeah, what I'm doing there is business development. Basically, I'm looking after all our commercial partnerships globally. Basically, resellers, system integrators. So, been more than a couple of times in Japan, Argentina, South Africa, Sweden. Like a lot of traveling. And just to get that machine rolling. So yeah, this is really in short. If I were to look back and talk a little bit about my military or Navy service, basically I was after finishing the academy, I was placed on a ship, and my role was to be in charge of electronics. So basically, it's electronics and defense officer. There are 30 sailors that are reporting to me back then. Each sailor has their own system that he is in charge of, and he knows the ins and outs of it. And basically, I have to look after basically everything at the ship that electrons is running through. So whether it's sonar system, radars, communication, weapon system, whatever it is, that was under my department. So a lot of learning to do with everything that's related to electronics and electricity in general. And yeah, it was so. I wanted to give like maybe one story. Probably shouldn't go into what Shimon started to say about my ship being hit by a missile, and then when we all of us needed to go back and placed back into the ships, I didn't have a ship that I could go back to, and they placed me on another vessel, another corvette. And like being in charge of the defense of those corvettes after your own ship got hit by a missile, and actually this is like a very sad story, that two of the people that was under me back in the first ship that I served was actually killed there. And like taking that and being in charge of like the wellness of the ship, it wasn't like a really easy experience. It's, as you can see, it's still pretty difficult to grasp. I will talk about a different story. There was a mission that we needed to go and stop a Syrian ship that was intended to go and smuggle weapons into Syria. We had like a really rocky seas back then, like one of those days that usually you wouldn't go out to the sea, but because it was like you know that mission and that ship needed to be stopped, we had to go. And yeah, happens to be that one of the platforms that I was in charge of, one of the defense platforms, has like a malfunction, and like you have to take care of it while at sea. And like you need to understand, it's like rocky altogether, and I'm going through like the open deck in order to get to that last room where that system is. So I see the malfunction, I see that from the war room, but the platform itself is like on the very edge, like the most front room of the ship. And like obviously it's like, because of that location, it's like the most rocky location of the ship. And so it's like a very small room where the system is, and it's like going back and forth, and like everything shakes. And like the sailor that was in charge of that system is like constantly vomiting, like he couldn't hold anything, and like every 30 seconds he would vomit again and again. And like, you know, it's really difficult just being there. It's very difficult. But not only that, you have to take the manual and like open it and put the electronics drawing apart and say, oh, I think it's here, and let's test this, and let's try to get that electronic card out, and let's see what's going on. And it's like impossible. Like I had to do that by myself. I remember calling my deputy back in the war room just for him to tell me if what I'm doing is solving the problem. And he was like, listen, I don't know what to tell you. It's not working. And like, just to hear him across the line telling me that, it was, now that I think about it, it's pretty funny, but it wasn't really funny back then. Yeah, I guess that's it. If you have any questions for me, I'm going to stick around here for any of your questions.
Good. Thank you, Asaf. Deddi, you there?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Hi.
So, hi everyone. So I like Shimon and Asaf, we share quickly the path I went through in the army and in the professional life. And Shimon, please help me with some unique army words that I guess you know better than me in English. So if I need, so my name is actually the name is David. I guess it's pretty funny in English, Daddy, when I got introduced in English. So the Hebrew name is David. I had a similar path in the Navy, actually like Shimon, starting the Cadets Academy, and then the deputy commander in a missile boat, and then a captain in a patrol boat in the southern areas of Israel, like Shimon said. Actually, me and Shimon were like pretty much bed next to bed throughout most of our service. But then they got split because I got injured. I lost around 25% of the hearing in my right ear, which means I'm not able because of this to serve as a commander in the ship. So I actually went down. This is how we call it. You're up when you're on the sea, and went down when you're on the shore. So I went down to be a team lead or team commander in the Naval Academy. Actually, we've studied to be Chovel, to be a captain. I went there to coach others, and I spent there like a year. And then I finished my service actually on the headquarters of the Navy, being in charge of all the simulation systems, coaching simulation systems across all the Navy, both for submarines and for for different kinds of boats and for missiles, and also for the
Navy SEALs.
Yes, and so different simulation. And actually, the story I want to share, the quick story I want to share from, I haven't went through my professional life. So currently I'm a product manager, as stated, a product manager in Autodesk. Autodesk is actually a big American company doing a lot of stuff in the areas of design and construction. What I'm doing there is actually developing softwares from ground up around the construction business. Currently working on trying to improve the way construction world is dealing with construction schedules. A very unique work to do, and it's really nice to see things shaping up there. Before joining Autodesk, I actually did something totally else. I had a company that did actually green consulting. I was a consultant working with everywhere in Israel, from Google, Facebook, but also to major contractors, general contractors in Israel, making sure that the buildings that they build are as sustainable as they can be. I did it for 5 years in a company that I left when I went to Autodesk. And before this, I had a small business doing sing-along evenings. Actually, this is something I've been doing 2 years ago. It's really fun. Actually, I also did some in English because of Shimon that invited me for some occasions and trips he has been leading. So it was a big part of my life. But this is something I quitted 2 years ago. Maybe I'll go back to it someday. It was fun. So the story I want to share from the army is actually not on the army side of stuff, but more on the human side of stuff, or the social side of stuff. As Shimon said, the army is really the place where all the Israelis meet each other. And it's really a unique connection in a lot of ways. And when I was leading a team in the Naval Academy, I had a cadet who was a lonely soldier. I don't know if it's a term that tells you something, but it means it's a soldier. Yeah, okay, so everyone knows them, right? So he came from the Soviet Union from Russia with no one. He had no one in Israel, practically no one. He was living back then throughout the course Chovlim, throughout the course, which is really intense. He didn't have home to go back to. He was coming back on the weekends to his girlfriend, which was kind enough to host him when he went out home. And when I was his commander, actually they got broke. So he literally stayed in the base when everyone else went home because he just didn't have home to go to. So the military in Israel it can be really bureaucratic, and trying to get this young man home to go to was really hard. And this is where I just said, okay, I'm not going with the army, and I just started to phone call everyone I know, just literally everyone I know. I phone call and said, guy, we have Dima, his name was Dima, and we need to get him home. And after a few phone calls from friends, etc., like a network of people looking for homes, we actually found really quickly, in 2 days, we found this young boy home inside the kibbutz that hosted him for free, gave him a home and gave him a place to be for the next 6 years. And I think this is amazing. And I know this is something he never forgets. He still tells it to me. And so I really think it's emphasized the way things works in the army, or the way we want things to work in trying to create those connections between people in Israel. And I think this is maybe the biggest thing I take for my military service. Other things from the military service that I feel like was influencing my life and my professional life, especially, I think is the multidisciplinary of our job as a captains. You need to understand a lot of things in a lot of areas, both machinery, electronics, how to deal with the sea, and a lot of subject areas. And this is something that really helped me going from subject area to subject area throughout my professional life, going from singing into green construction and then into product management, etc. And it really helps. You learn how to get professionalized very fast in various knowledge areas. And I wrote myself another thing that I want to share. Yeah, and maybe the biggest thing that I learned from the army is how to be a people person. I have to say that I think the person I learned from him the most how to be a people person is actually Shimon Levy. I guess if you know him, you know he is a people person, but also the academy and really the day-to-day job or the day-to-day being a captain, working with various people in various ages from various backgrounds, really teach you how to make sure you're talking with the person in front of you the way he can get you and you can get him. And I think this is the number one skill I got from my military service. Yeah, so that's me. And thank you everyone for having me and letting us share our stories.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, David and Asaf and Shimon. I think now it'd be a great time if, I think the chat is on, but also if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, if that's okay, I want to go first because I just, before we start, because I wanted to ask Asaf the first question, if that's okay, because you mentioned like, you didn't want to talk about the fact that 2 of your soldiers were killed, but I don't want to talk about that experience, but you know, it's been a while and it's been over a decade, I think, since your army service, but what kind of toll does it, even today, like in 2020, things that stay with you that are you able to share it? Is it like still on your soul and on like within things that are still within that you still carry with you?
Yeah, so so first of all, it's not like I don't want to talk about it. I can. It's fine. It's just, you know, a little bit I don't know, emotional. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's one of those things you don't really think about a lot, but when you do, you know, you think about those you know, young kids. And what, like, you know, I was young back then as well, probably 2 years older than they were. They were actually not my own reports. They were not sailors. They were from the intelligence unit, and they just came along to that specific ride. And yeah, it's you know, it's one of those things like you don't consider, you don't know how it really affects you, but as you were able to see, and like it's there, and like you don't really know actually how you know how it affects your decisions and your day-to-day probably.
Thank you. Anyone wants to unmute himself, or you can use the chat as well for any questions. And maybe also I want to share, Shimon, you sent me a few photos from your army service that I thought it would be nice to share here, because
Please don't.
no, I
Please
think
don't. I just forwarded an email.
no, I think it's necessary to have a few
Oh my
no,
God.
look at that. How many years ago is that, Shimon? Are we looking here?
This was December
11 years ago.
2007, December 2007, probably. Yeah. December 2007, maybe a bit before that.
It's the Romah, right, Shimon?
No, that was the 896. This is my own ship. This is my ship and my soldiers at the time. Nobody can argue with the fact that I was skinnier than I am now. By the way, I've got the proof. This was
great stuff.
Yeah, ridiculous stuff.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Before we go to the officer.
So Luis, I just saw a question for you in the chat. So Israel has really pioneered a lot of that. So the first woman commander of a ship is actually a shlicha doing something similar, but not as senior as Uriah in New Jersey right now. So I think this volunteerism and working with the Jewish community is something that runs in all of our veins.
Who is she?
Oh, that's her name. She's in New Jersey. She's in the Jewish community in New Jersey.
And she was also part of our Yom HaZikaron service at some point. We shared a few of her stories as well. Okay. Anyone would like to ask any questions? Unmute yourself or, okay. What were each of you?
I have a quick question. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Uriah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, this is Betty Kristowski. Wonderful, wonderful program.
Thank you, Betty.
I have a question for Shimon. Shimon, you used to be young.
I'm still beautiful, Aunt Betty.
I didn't say you weren't beautiful. I said you used to be young.
Is there, all right, thank you. Deb, you had a question? Deb, are you there? Okay. Or there's another question from Dustin.
Here's a question.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Deb, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, my husband was a Navy veteran from the Vietnam War, and he said the Navy had the best food. So I was wondering if the Israeli Navy had the best food.
So everybody knows that the people who have their own chefs are like the corvettes where Asaf served, and the submarines who really have like a top-notch chef who makes delicious food. In the ships that Deddi and I were in, we were the ones making the food. So there would be a rotation between the soldiers. So if I could only describe to you how many experiments by 18 and 19-year-olds who were far away from home, I was forced to eat at different nights of the week, and how many hot dogs and contraptions that included peanut butter and jelly and things like that. That's what happens when we have to cook our own food. But I think Asaf ate better than both of us did.
Yeah, so I have a...
Sometimes you get a miluim. How do you say miluim, Shimon?
Reserves.
So someone from reserve is coming. So we had someone from reserve for 2 months, I think, that he was actually a chef. So every time he was coming back with bags of things and say, "Oh, I'm cooking, guys. You do everything in the boat. I'm cooking," and then you like eat like a king.
So my story around food includes my first sail on the Khanit. And like it was literally the first time I ever went over with a ship, and I was like there, and then the chef, and I was like starving, and then the chef is coming with like a personal pizza. Yes, Shimon, in the Corvettes we did have those, so a personal pizza for each of us, and then he's like, for some reason, it got a little spicy. I don't know how, and I don't know if you can imagine what happened next. So I'm like accustomed to eating hot food. Like I really love it. But and then I started to eat it, And it
See,
was
this
like,
is how spoiled they were. This is how spoiled they were. He's complaining about a personal pizza served to him that was a little bit spicy.
Shimon, please don't interrupt the adults here. So, so I was eating the pizza and it was like super spicy. And I was like, I see everyone else are eating it. And I was like, I'm not going to be the one who's there. I can't eat it. So I keep eating it and like I'm sweating and I'm getting more and more sweaty. I was like, no one is having that hard of a time. And then by the end, when I finished the pizza, the chef came to me saying, "Welcome to the INS Hanit. Like this is your welcome initiation." And it's like I've never seen anyone eat the entire pizza, so I really admire you for that.
Dustin has a couple of questions. Dustin, are you there? You want to ask them?
Yeah, so the first question is, I guess we're talking about food. So what was the worst food that you tried to make during your service?
So we didn't really, I mean, unfortunately, you know, being the commander of a ship, you can't really take like 4 hours of hiatus and go down and start cooking. You can only do that when you're docking and when you want to spoil your soldiers, or the contrary, you have your mom or pop come and bring food and you can share it with everybody else. But I just had a lot of, I mean, just imagine this, somebody going to college, 18, 19 years old, never really cooked anything besides ramen, is now responsible to make food, literally full groceries, vegetables, chickens, oil, spices, to like 15 people. And they've got 8 hours to do it. And it can be really successful sometimes, or it could be like the most horrible experience you can imagine. Like, yeah.
And,
Yeah, pretty bad.
and Dustin, the second question?
Second question is, what was your favorite country or city that you visited during your service?
So I think Asaf was in, I think all of us as cadets, we went to Cyprus, no? Crete? Where did we go? Crete or Cyprus? Crete, Cyprus?
Yeah,
We went to Crete.
So basically, I think you need to understand that it's like our area is pretty small. So you basically go from the Haifa port or the Ashdod port, and then like you go back. So it's not like every week you dock at a different port or anything like that. I think, yeah, we all had experience. I actually went to Venice with my ship. That was pretty cool. Went to Turkey. That was pretty nice. Really amazing to see, like our parallel or colleagues in the Turkey Navy, and see how they're living their lives. So yeah.
The closest attraction I had was primarily in the Gaza Strip, where I spend most of my service. The closest to Turkey I've gotten, not including the Mavi Marmara, which we got pretty close, was we got like a cruise ship about 157 miles offshore, reach out with a SOS that they had somebody there, actually not somebody Israeli, but an American citizen who was Jewish, who was severely injured, and there were no helicopters or no landing pads available for them to like extract them for. So we needed to go there and pick him up and bring him back to the hospital. So that's the closest to Turkey I've gotten.
Uria?
Yes.
Hi, this is Betty again. I have a real question now.
Sure.
For any of the three of them, did you ever find that when you were on any of your missions that you had a soldier that absolutely could not handle it and sort of freaked out and got nervous and just couldn't deal with what was happening? And if so, how did you handle that?
Yeah, Betty, this is Shimon. I'm going to take the first stab and then I'll give it to Asaf and Deddi. But definitely, because we were doing a lot of close shore combat, then getting shot at would unfortunately become a regular occurrence, and not everybody react the same way to being shot at. But whether it's the adrenaline, whether it's the command, whether it's your own ship, then you need to kind of like literally weather the storm. I had a couple of soldiers, that would anywhere from break down and cry to run downstairs and hide, to, do something along those lines, I just tied them to me. I just basically took a rope and tied them to me. So they were like with me, and wherever I'd go, they'd go with me. So they were basically like tied to me for the duration of whatever needed to happen, because you don't do it in advance. You do it in real time if something happens or if something escalates, and you can't allow that. So I would tie them to me with a rope.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So for me, I didn't have like a breakdown during missions. I did have a couple of breakdowns while at port. What I did have is someone for some reason getting unconscious, and like, just his body would shut down, and he was collapse in the middle of anything that he would do. The first couple of times it happened, he was actually on the open deck, and like was very possible that he would fall off the ship. They like a lot of, and then he would get memory loss, and like he wouldn't understand where he is and stuff like that. And then like I really want him to get off the ship. He really wanted to stay on the ship with his friends and doing the work that he likes doing, and he was trained to do. So it's funny because like you expect someone like that to say, yeah, I understand, and like it's not healthy, and it's not secure for me to stay on board, but like he really wanted to stay. Yeah, so not sure if this is what you were expecting, but that's my story.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, I will share that I didn't have any like a collapse or something like this, like Shimon and Asaf shared. I did some, and there are a lot of while interacting with other targets, etc. There are a lot of I saw a lot of blackouts, like people just don't know exactly what they should do now or something like this. I didn't have a situation where a strong yell or throwing something at someone wouldn't like shake him and get him back to his point. I did have one occasion from the other way of someone while we were conducting a warning shooting, where you're not trying to just shoot in the air because you think there is something that gets really, really suspicious, someone getting towards Israel or something, you just want to make sure that everything all right, so shoot in the air. So a soldier that didn't listen or just got blackout while shooting. And so this was a very severe situation, just needed to like really push him off. And this person went out of the boat for a very long time until he got back into a regular service.
So, I'm sorry,
Thank you.
we have time for one more question. And Nancy is asking, and I think will be a great last question, is how do you think the training you received and gave yourself while in the Navy works in your favor today?
That's a good one, and it's a classic David realm. Go ahead.
A classic David. So
I think I can. Okay, sorry.
No, but I think like I said before, I think the most important thing on the training is be able to. It sounds like a simple thing, but it's really, I think all of us know it's not a simple thing. Talking to people, and I think most of the training, or a lot of the training, we're trying to be a commander, is to make sure that you can take a bunch of people that sometimes they don't want to be where they're at sometimes, and to create a team, really create a team of people that are doing something together exceptionally good towards some kind of a mission. And this is a hard skill. And the basic of the skill is be able to touch each and every one of those people. And I think this is the biggest training that I got, both from the academy and from the real life service.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Shimon? Asaf, sorry, Asaf.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's like something that we were trained to do, but I think with the training, what I think helped me the most during whatever came after was like the feeling that you can actually do a lot of stuff. Like your self-esteem and your self-worth is high. Like you see what you're able to do at 24, and those are hard stuff in while at pressure. So basically you say like it's pretty easy probably for me now to, I don't know, start my own company or do basically whatever I want. So I think this is what I gained the most out of service.
Thank you. Shimon will be the last.
Thanks, Surya, and thank you, Nancy, for the question. I think that the training is a means to an end. The training sets you up for the experience, and the experience hopefully sets you up for success and for just life in general. So I think the unique part around this is that at any point in time, you're still not in a stage where you believe the awe of the responsibility that you received. The first time I took a ship out to sea by myself, 22 years old, 15 people, 72 tons, and high seas, and I was like, who gave me this responsibility? Who gave me this? Who is insane enough to give me this responsibility right here, right now? I'm not ready. I'm not worthy. I'm not this. I'm not this. And my luck was that, that first time that I took a boat out to sea was actually the time when we had like a smuggling attempt from Egypt to the Gaza Strip, which we ended up attacking a certain area, and a bunch of rockets were destroyed. A bunch of terrorists, found alternative ending, and Israel being Israel, like you come back to the dock again, saying, "Who gave me this responsibility?" And they're waiting for you on the dock with like a fruit ball, saying like, and you're like, "What is happening here? Is this even real?" I think going through that experience, not training, that experience gives you a certain sense of self-worth and what you can actually contribute, change, do. And it's very empowering, not only to yourself, but to those around you. And you have to love people, like Deddi said. You have to love people. If you don't love people, try spending weeks with them or days with them in a very confined environment and coexisting, not only coexisting, but like really thriving.
Toda rabba, Rava. Thank you so much, Shimon, Asaf, Deddi. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Dustin, for the idea. We weren't here without you. Thank you all for joining us. We have so much still going on in the Israel Center. Next week, next Thursday, we're starting a new series about Israeli art, and we have another series coming up right after the Chagim, talking about 25 years of Rabbeinu Destination. We have a series of 4 different meetings, so hopefully you can join us again and again. Toda rabba, thank you so much, all 3 of you, and thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Toda rabba.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Gmar Chatima Tova.
Cheers, guys.